Hi there, welcome to a very special edition of Craig Houston Talks 2, where I'm back to the roots of the channel, having an interview guest. And this guest is a Royal Marine who now no longer has a career in our armed forces because he was guilty of the heinous crime of questioning DEI and the safety of it and how good it would be for our army to have DEI at recruitment, and particularly when people are trying to pass physical tests. So I'd like to introduce my guest, and today we have John Carr. How are you, John?
Yeah, I'm good, Greg. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on, and thank you for covering the story in the first place. So yeah, it's good to be on. How are you?
Bang average, but then I'm always bang average. But we're moving north now that we've got the IT problems sorted that we had earlier. So, John, just before we get into the actual story, just to build the picture, could you tell the audience just in a minute to 2 minutes, life up until you joined the army, why you joined the army, and then we can go into the crux of the story and what happened to you when you got into the army.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, good question. So I suppose starting, I was raised to start with Dundee, then Aberdeen. Family took us to Africa, then moved us to England. Was always sort of interested in a career in combat. I actually wanted to be a cage fighter for a little while, and was doing that for a little while, but came to the conclusion that if there was going to be a big war on, as I thought there may be coming up, I wouldn't be able to forgive myself if I was, training in a white padded room with gloves on when I should have been preparing to be a soldier. So yeah, spent a good bit of time preparing. Wanted to join the best, so signed up to join the Royal Marines. Went through the process of doing that. It's a long process. It's supposed to be the toughest process in the world. 99.9% of people that apply don't actually make it through to the end. So it's one of those where it's a tricky one. But as far as I'm concerned, if you just stick with it, you'll be fine. But yeah, so that's what got me up to sort of joining the Royal Marines. It's a very long story short type explanation there. But yeah, it was a great time, and going in and doing the training and becoming a part of the brotherhood. It becomes an all-encompassing part of your identity. So that's what sort of took me there.
Just out of curiosity, see from signing the first form to apply to become a Marine and actually passing out, what's that timescale is that, John?
To be honest, I was doing care for the elderly at one point, and one of the guys was telling me when he was younger, he went and signed up, and the next morning he was on a train to go start his basic training. But modern day recruitment, anywhere between, I've heard, between sort of 6 months and 3 years plus. You know what I mean? These things, yeah, the absolute bureaucracy of it. There's an organization called Capita. They are, from what I can tell, just scamming the government for money to try and keep people in the system, to keep themselves solvent. And they just delay people as much as they can. For instance, I know people that have been delayed because when they were 4, they went to the hospital because they had dryness under their eyes, and that caused a delay to them getting in the military. So it can be a long process.
What was your personal experience? How long did it take you
from so for me
and getting actually passing out?
For me, what I ended up doing was I wanted to originally sign up to be an officer. I think largely that was directed by the financial incentive that wanted me to do that. And I'm actually very glad that in the end I didn't end up doing that. I went through all the tests and passed all the tests and things, but there's only a certain amount of people that they take for the officer intake, and I wasn't selected for them. I think they only take 50 people a year or whatever. So upon failing to be selected for that, I was just like, right, get me in with the lads. I don't care if I'm making 15K a year, because that was a factor for me. It was a difference between starting at 15K, which for me is would have been a 50% pay cut, And yeah, I didn't quite want to take a 50% pay cut, but when my hand was forced, I did that. I'm so glad that I did as well. So yeah, for me it was like a couple of years. For me, it was a couple of years.
Serious? Wow. So you've joined the Marines, and obviously the end shot and the whole point of getting you on was that ended a bit shit. So we kind of want to cover that story now.
Yeah.
So when did you? And your whole issue was round about the DEI recruitment
Yeah.
and what was happening. I think more specifically when people were tested. If if you go out to recruit people in that are opposite sex or minorities, whatever, then that's kind of cool. But I think from what I gathered, your biggest concern was, well, why would you get lesser test results in pass? Was that kind of what was your
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we have a very high standard that you have to attain, right? And you have to attain that standard, and let's say 99.9% of people don't make it through. 99.9% of lads don't make it through. But you have this situation where the politicians are trying to push this narrative where everybody's the same, men and women are the same, everybody's the same. So they push this narrative against the Royal Marines, like, okay, everyone should be the same. Why haven't you got any women in there? And it's political at the top for these people, and the politicians and the media are pushing them to try and get women in. And it was so obvious that this was happening. Like, they'd make these big advertising pushes trying to get women to join. And then everybody would see firsthand when the women were on camp, they'd just see them getting preferential treatment. And they'd see them passing tests that everybody could see that they hadn't passed. And it was a huge, everyone would talk about it, but that everybody kind of knows the political situation. Everybody's aware of, like, okay, whether you want to call it political correctness or, anti-male policies or DEI. It's one of those things where it was so prominent, it was so in our face, so insulting, and at the same time, nothing was being done about it. So yeah, it was kind of an annoying situation. Excuse me, to be honest.
So you're saying that the tests, I take it these were physical tests. That that was the bar was lowered for females.
This is the problem, because so they would say, and this is the line that they take: we've never lowered standards, and that's generally true. But what they do is they pass people on warning. So somebody will not pass a physical standard that's incredibly important that you need to pass it, and because they're a girl, they'll pass it on warning, or because they're a girl, they'll make everybody else leave the place where the assessment is happening, and they'll just pass them, more or less for sympathy reasons, or because, okay, we need to get a woman in so we can get the politicians off of our back. And that's kind of the narrative that's been sold to the lads. It's like, okay, what we need to do is just let one woman through, and then the politicians will leave us alone. But I'm sure, as you know, and I'm sure as your viewers will know, is that's not how the government works. That's not how the media works. And if you ever give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And if you ever allow them that control over you, it's the beginning of the end. And so yeah, it was long answer, but yeah, absolutely physical standards, which are the important things.
Could you give us an example, or maybe an example or two of what sort of physical tests would be placed in front of a Marine a candidate trying to become a Marine that would be difficult for a female that, guys would, just because of nature and science would find easier? What sort of things were they testing you on?
Yeah, okay. So one thing is, for instance, you get to a certain point in training, you have to pass these physical tests, physical standards to get to the next level, right? To prove that you're capable of, in a dangerous situation, being able to take care of the lads. So if somebody goes down, you need to be able to pick them up, get them on your back, and run a certain distance with them so you can save their life. And all those standards are put in there for a reason. And you get to a certain point where it's bottom field. And I've heard people firsthand who've seen this firsthand. I've been on bottom field, witnessing women attempt bottom field firsthand. women personal trainers and PT staff trying to attempt this. And it's what it is you've got your rifle and you've got your fighting order. So you're weighted. I want to say it's 21 pounds in a rifle or something like that. And you've got to do rope climbs. You've got to do a not an endurance course, but a sort of an assault course type thing. It's like a bottom field assault course. And you've got to do fireman's carry. So you've got to pick up these heavy lads and take them a certain distance. So that could involve, for instance, I was like 90 kilos with 21 pounds in a rifle. That's 100 kilos. I was having to pick up some big bastards that were, 110 kilos even. I remember one of the lads, and he's got all his kit on. So you're running down the field and you're carrying 200 kilos worth of human and kit. I mean, obviously including yourself. And that is the sort of test where I have had for people firsthand accounts of people just witnessing women fail these tests and be passed anyway. And what that says to me as somebody that's a Marine, and everybody knows this, like these standards are there for a reason. If you can't pick up one of the lads and drag them out of a firefight situation or any dangerous situation, you're a liability. You're gonna get my mate killed. And that's when that's why it's such an emotional thing for me. And it really was an emotional thing for me where I was just like, I can't watch this happen. I've been told and trained to say, okay, if there's ever an order that you're given, or if there's any this is actual training that we get. Okay, if you ever see a situation where unethical things are happening and it could result in the deaths of people, you have to speak up. That was the training that we got. And it got to the point where I was just like, I was looking around and I was like, everybody is talking about this. Everybody's upset about this. And I'd ask people like, so you going to do anything about it? Should we do this? Should we do that? And everyone's like, oh no, my job. And I get that. I really get that because I've had my job taken from me now, and that is the risk. But, I think you have to recognize that there are worse things than losing your job, such as staying silent in situations like this. And let's say they do pass a woman that isn't up to the standards and she does get one of your mates killed, or you killed, and a father, a son, or a brother killed. That'll be a much harder life to live than the one where you lost your job for these sorts of things. So yeah, that's that situation. That's why I had to do something about it.
No, I get that now, and I think we've painted a picture exactly why, and what led up to you doing something. Now, before we go into the something that you've done, are there now ladies, females who are in the Marines who, if they were not males, so how did they not get in? What stops it? What stops them getting in? Right,
it's a long. Yeah, it's a long training process, to be honest, man. And going through it, it's tricky, and you may get easy passes. They may give people paper passes, but it doesn't mean that their body's going to be able to stand up to the rigors that they're being put through. And there's also the skill side of things. Like you may not be passing the skill side of things, and in those situations, it's a bit more blatant, because if you can't prove that you're able to handle weapons properly, then it's a much more difficult situation to go to somebody and say, okay, she isn't safe with a weapon, but I want you to pass her anyway. That's something I don't think it's harder to get that past the line. So yeah, these women are tried, man, but it's heavyweight and it's long term, and they end up falling by the wayside. And it's unfortunate. Like I empathize with these people that they want to do this and for whatever reason, but yeah, it hasn't been something that's been seen to be possible so far. So yeah.
Right. So there are several women attempted it, but they've not completed the actual full training schedule, despite getting some pass marks that maybe shouldn't have taken. Right. So I mean, you're a level-headed guy, right? If there was a female who came in scored the exact same as everybody else, was, marked the same as everybody, and managed to get to the end of this, which sounds like quite a heavy training regime selection process, you would have no problems with that person serving, would you?
Well, potentially, it's a question that I think needs to be asked to the lads, because it's certainly a massive culture change. I mean, in the petition that I made at the time, so I made a petition to send around the lads to basically express that we weren't comfortable with people being pushed through for political reasons and the dangers associated with that. And that's sort of how this became a political thing, unfortunately. And it was sent internally. I wasn't making it like a public document, but yeah. So I think that is to be honest, mate, I think it's a question that needs to be asked to the lads. Like, okay, you guys have a brotherhood here, and women change culture. Like the women would change that culture, absolutely, and potentially the lads need to be asked if they would, if they think that would be. Because it's all about operational effectiveness. Do you think that would increase operational effectiveness? I think a lot of lads would say, well, there are some things that you could say, such as it's much harder for me to be away from my wife and my family when my wife and my family, or more specifically, my wife knows that I'm, in close proximity with, with females. Do you get what I'm saying from that front?
Yeah.
And then there's just generally the differences between how the sort of wavelengths that women and men are on. There's the logistical issues of, okay, you get women now. Well, now all the kit and equipment that we need to get to the front line. Well, now we need to add tampons. Now we need to add all the sorts of sanitary things that women need that we wouldn't generally need. And that adds a whole logistical potential nightmare on top of that as well. So it's a question to be asked, but I think the lads are sort of split between, I would say it's maybe 50-50 or whatever. Like some lads are just like, no, we want to keep this a brotherhood. And other lads are just like, you know what, if somebody can earn it, then they can be a part of be a part of the same thing. If somebody can earn it, like lads, like nobody really has malice in their heart towards people that want to try and do these things. But I, to be honest, now that I've left, and now that I don't have to be seen to be political, for me personally, I think the lads should be given a choice. And the logistical side of things, the logistical side of things, and the cultural changes that could happen, and also, to be honest, Craig, the method by which these women have been pushed through and the trust that's been degraded for the lads it gets to a point where a woman will pass now and people just be like, I question that. I question that because so many people have seen it for so long that they've been trying to push these people through. So bit of a long answer. It's split into two camps is what I would say.
Yeah, listen, I've never been in the armed forces. I wear this bracelet, which was given to me by a stranger down in the Tommy's rally in London a couple of weeks ago, and I've had them before. I'm very, very proud of our armed forces. I've always humbled when people that are prepared to put their life at risk for the country if they ever do so. I never done it. I never had that inclination, and I maybe wasn't brave enough, even if the inclination had came my way. But I've got a different problem with it. Not a problem, but concern. I don't get to make these decisions. But you're saying that even if a woman did pass, there's like issues with the equipment that you need to be different, and even this brotherhood that evolves in the Marines. I've never sampled that, so that's not an issue for me. But what I have a concern with is if we have females in front line, and our Marines and our SAS and stuff, that's proper serious stuff, right? If there's a war kicks off and you get deployed, you're going to see some bullets coming your way, right? That's kind of accepted. And I just have a conscience that I don't know if I'm comfortable with putting women into that situation. If that's because people want to call me a misogynist or you want to just call me a dinosaur, then I'm just a product of my surroundings and been born in the 70s and brought up in the 80s and 90s. There was and I might be old-fashioned and I don't have a problem with this, women and children first, holding doors for women, and if folks call me misogynistic for that, then so be it. But that's kind of where my head is with it, and I'm just not comfortable with the concept of having the possibility of something kicks off somewhere,
Yeah.
and the paras and commandos and all that get flung in first, and it's probably more dangerous than a normal rank and file guy in the Scottish regiment, whatever we're calling it this week. And that's where I am. I mean, is that fair, or am I? You're obviously, I would imagine, a couple of
you know
decades on
what?
you.
What? That's a really good point, to be honest. Something that nobody's really thinking of, like, because we're not in a kinetic conflict right now, the consequences of being in a frontline position, those those don't just stop at at like injuries and things. Like, in war, the lads in the front line get killed, and it's a horrible tragedy. And you make a really good question. Is like, do we as a country really think that it's this big, great, positive thing that we need to push for our daughters and mothers to be going into these situations and, captured by the enemy? Like, what is as for a woman, being captured by the enemy isn't quite the same as being captured by the enemy as a man. There's a lot more vulnerability. There's a lot more bad things that can happen there.
Well, yeah, it would depend who your enemy is. You could suggest that depending on who you're at war with, that it could be easier being a woman. But there's certainly some horrible people out there and some sort of horrible cultures where, without even getting into the details of it, horrible things can happen. We've seen what happened in October a couple of years ago when civilian hostages were taken from Israel into Gaza, and horrific things that we all know goes on without even talking about them when that happens. So yeah, if you're a female, it could be a positive or a negative. God forbid, to lose one soldier in any action's horrific. But I just don't know if our society's ready for the concept of bringing home dead women. Have you ever had a conflict where within zero deaths? I don't think that happens. Even in the shortest, quickest theatres where we deploy, it's inevitable somebody's going to die some point, and I'm not comfortable with the concept of having women on that front line. So we're kind of we understand what your problem was. Now to cover what did you do about it, and then we can cover the consequences of what you done about it. But what did you do about the situation? You sort of started talking about the petition and stuff. So what did you do?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I just started talking to as many people up and down the chain of command as I possibly could to just sanity check whether or not this was just me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm politically minded anyway. I just wanted to be sure that I wasn't the only one that was sitting there thinking, this is mental. Like, watching the BBC put out these astroturfing newsreels. It's not even a newsreel. Like they put out a whole video promoting the prospect and the inevitability of women becoming Marines. And I sort of saw that, to be honest, as like a threat, like a political threat, like almost like the BBC and the politicians that were involved in that saying this will happen, i.e., you better make this happen because we need this to happen for a political victory for our ever degenerating progressive movement that we have. And I checked with everyone, and everyone was on the same page. Like, I don't think I even talked to anyone that was like, yeah, I'm comfortable with what's going on. The vast majority of people were just saying it's ridiculous, it's a joke, it's blatant, and it's going to end up with a death. And it just got to the point where I was like, confirmed that with so many people, and then so many people said they weren't willing to do anything about it, and which is fair. It's absolutely fair. Like, they've tried to ruin my life for this. Do you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I just realized you can't wait around for other people to make decisions on these fronts. You can't, even though you're young, even though I was like, I'm 25. Why am I the bloke that's making this decision? You know what I mean? I'm 25. I'm the lowest, passed out rank you can be. But I was like, okay, what can I do? I was like, I need to get around the idea of what's going on here. I was just like, okay, how do we get this across to lads and show to the the Navy chain of command that are pushing this on us, to show to the politicians that we're not just going to bend down to these dangerous policies that are being inflicted on us. Or not policies, because this stuff is kind of done in darkness to a degree, undercover. But so I made a petition, and I spent a couple of days wording that petition, just getting the wording right, and just framed it like this. Like, I'm concerned that this is happening. I'm concerned that people are being given paper passes. I'm concerned that this is being done for political reasons. And most importantly, I'm concerned that these political entanglements with the military are getting overly entangled in the military, to the point where they are going to it's going to result in the death of my mate. And that's the emotional connection for me. And that's the part where I was just like, I cannot stand by and let this happen. So just put that out and just put it in a list of concerns. I'm concerned of this. I'm concerned of that. I'm concerned like this. And that was the wording of it. I'm concerned. And, it wasn't that you had definitely bad faith actors come out and say, oh, you were targeting an individual. Didn't mention any individual at all. Spoke about the process as a whole. Put that petition out, and within a day, I had 1,000 signatures on that petition before it was taken down. 1,000 or thereabouts, because the last time I checked it, it was like 800, 900. And then a couple of hours later, it got taken down. And yeah, so I put that out, and everyone was talking about it. I'll tell you this, everyone signed it as well. Everyone that got a hold of that signed it, and that's up and down the chain of command. And it just resonated with the lads, because everyone is afraid of their jobs, feels like they can't speak out. And that was why I decided to do it in that manner, because there'd be no other way to get the message across.
Yeah. So this petition, how long was it in existence to get those 1,000 signatures? And I take it there was, from memory, ex-Marines could sign it as well. It wasn't just current serving Marines.
Yeah, it was open. I mean, like I said to lads, like try, it'd be best if this, because people that aren't serving Marines anymore are still Marines. You know what I mean? And their voice is as important as any other. And but yeah, within 24 hours it was 1,000. And put it in context, there's only like 3,000 Marines cutting about. You know what I mean?
Wow, that's an incredible show you managed to get.
Yeah, and so that was the reality of that situation. It popped off, and if it had been more than a day, it would have been a lot more than that. I can guarantee you that. It was only just gaining momentum at that point. So. Yeah, so I say there's a particular individual, a particular, like a commissar is, like a Soviet commissar.
Mm-hmm.
Particular individual who was in the we call it Navy chain of command, whatever, that targeted that petition and got it taken down. And then everything transpired from that point. So, yeah.
Well, the first I'd sort of heard about it was your brother had done, I think, from memory, 2 sort of podcast videos about the story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's what first brought it to my attention. So you put this petition out. It sounds as if it's getting 1 out of 3 potential signatories within 24 hours. That's phenomenal, right? That would be like getting 20 to 30 million people in the UK to sign a petition in the first 24 hours, right? So that's a bonkers ratio you've pulled.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next?
Yeah, so after that point, it gets pulled down, and suddenly there's there's group chats and things, and suddenly people in the chain of command or whatever are trying to be like, oh, it could be Russian misinformation. We're not sure about the source of this. And I just knew that was absolute tat from the beginning. And like anybody that read the petition could see fine well, like no other person except a Marine could, that was firmly involved in the whole situation, could have the proper understanding to articulate in that way. And that's why so many lads saw it and just resonated with it. So this bloke, he's on, you know what, he's on Twitter actually. He's called Rick Cole, and he came after the lads, and he came after me with a burning passion, because he is a political commissar. The vast majority of people in the Marines were on my side with this. Said to me that they were on my side with this. But there's this bloke, Rick Cole. Like I say, he's on Twitter, and he starts attacking people on Twitter. He starts saying, "Oh, you're targeting an individual." And while he's doing this, he's working with Navy intelligence and people like that to try and find myself. To try and find the person who posted the petition. And obviously they're doing that through various different means or whatever. I don't know what's legal or not legal in that instance. Like, these people have access to everything. I'm sure it took them almost no time to find out it was me. But yeah, that he starts kicking off at people, attacking people, just being a terrible, traitorous bloke, to be honest. And that's how the vast majority of lads speak about this guy, is that he is a traitor.
Sorry to interrupt, John. Is this guy in the Marines?
Yeah. He's the only Marine, and he's a much higher rank. And he was threatening lads like, "Oh, you're going to come in, you're going to have these re-education things." And he was like going back and forth with my brother, saying some really inflammatory, stupid stuff, to be honest. And then he made his account all private, and then he blocked a bunch of people, and he was just targeting lads and stuff. And like I say, speak to any of the lads that know about this bloke and that were targeted by this bloke. You've got the lads and what the lads feel. And then you've got people like him that's just a political commissar. He's there to pick up a paycheck and do what the politicians tell him. And he just betrayed the lads. And I don't know if I've ever seen of a case of that happening before, where like, I would never go out and want to target a Marine, especially somebody as a higher rank. But he was going out and targeting me as somebody as a much higher rank, and targeting my character and attacking me. I'd never been aware of somebody doing that before. Like there's it's crazy, but so he's working behind the scenes to try and take this down and to try and find me. And then suddenly there's like these Navy spooks, right? Like Navy intelligence service or something like that. They deal with like security leaks or whatever, and they come and they've clearly watched too much Jason Bourne, and they think they're their class. And they come in and they come to where I work, and they just start threatening the lads. They start threatening their jobs. They're like, "You have to tell us who this person is, who that's made this. We think it's come from 4-3, which is where I was working at the time." And just saying the most outrageous, inflammatory, like targeting our lads and speaking down to them. So you lose your job, you lose this, and just like, and how it felt for the lads was just like, I can't believe this is their response to this. So many of us have shown their concern about this, and they're not even willing to address the issue. All they're trying to do is go on a witch hunt. And eventually, mate, it got to the point where I was just like, right, I'm tired of these blokes coming after our lads, coming after the boys, coming after my mates, looking for me. So I went to my chain of command. I was just like, right, I understand you've had these Navy spooks come in. I just want to make it clear, like, I was the one that made that petition. And if you're going to point the finger at anyone, point the finger at me. Because I made it. I didn't want to be public face forward about it, because I didn't want it to be about me. But they were doing everything in their power to try and avoid the issue and make it about the individual. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's what they did, mate. And so they came after me. After that, they sent me down to the Ministry of Defence main building in London and practically bloody interrogated me, mate. And sort of said to me like, oh yeah, they actually said to me, they're like, "Oh, think about your family in this instance." And I was just like, that's a threat. If ever I've heard a thinly veiled threat before, is like, you're threatening me, you're threatening my job, and I don't know who you are, and you're telling me think about my family. These lads sitting there like thinking they're all like, mate, just watch too many Jason Bourne films, like I say, and they're just treating me like some sort of criminal for doing this, and just completely avoiding the issue at all. And while I'm talking about all this, you're forgetting that the main issue here is the lads are concerned that their mates are going to be killed because of the political ideologies becoming too entangled in the training process. Completely avoided. And that doesn't take us exactly up to the interview, but that takes us somewhat of the way there.
So you've got the visit from the Born Identity platoon into the camp.
The wannabe,
I'm not going to have the boys put through this anymore. I'll just put my hand up, say it's me, and you sound as if you're frog marched into London, into HQ. How long are you there for this process of, you suggested it was like an interrogation?
Just a day. I want to say, like, so they flew me down and I was just in that room for like 2 hours. And and there was two sort of interrogators there or whatever, and I was supposed to have a witness, but instead of having a witness, I had somebody high up in the chain of command who worked in that building, who was there basically not to take my side or anything like that. I didn't have the right to a lawyer, didn't have a right to record anything, didn't have a right to anything really. That was about 2 hours, mate. And after that, I was just like, all I've done is tell the truth here. That's all I've done is tell the truth. And all these people want to do is avoid the truth, avoid what the lads are telling them. And I think after that point, what transpired? I was just like, at that point, mate, I could see that they were gearing up to try and ruin my life. And I was thinking, okay, maybe that's it. We'll see what happens. But I ended up going on a holiday that I had already pre-booked. It was, booked a long time before. Go on that holiday, mate, and come back from that holiday, go through passport control and get through passport control. And I could see this woman with these police, and she recognizes me. When you can see that somebody recognizes you. And then her little slug-like mate, who's also some sort of police investigator, is like, "Oh, are you John Carr?" and takes my ID and is like, "Oh, can you come with me?" Long story short, they take me into a room. They deny me the right to a lawyer. They deny me the right to silence, and they don't arrest me. They detain me. You know what I mean? As though there's any difference. In front of my wife, after coming back from holiday, scaring the hell out of my wife. And interrogating me under the Terrorism Act. And they said, "Oh, we're here because of your views." And I said, "What views would those be?" And they were like, "Well, I don't know. Well, we've just been told you've got views." And I was just like, "Well, this appears to be a direct." I was saying to these police officers, like, "You're not here because of my views. You're here because I've upset the Ministry of Defence." And the Ministry of Defence are trying to drag my name through the dirt and use their ends to justify their means. Basically, trying to dig into me and see what they can find. And they were just like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." I was like, "Well, this has happened just after this interview I've had with the Ministry of Defence." I later find out that interview with the Ministry of Defence, they refer me to Prevent for my political views. I'm in the Homeland Party, right? All I've done in the Homeland Party since I've been in it was plant trees and pick up litter. And that's basically what they do, to be honest. Basically all they do. And so and to go back to that interview with the Ministry of Defence, they slide me this picture of Rupert Lowe, who I talked to directly about this issue because I could see that they were targeting the lads. I said to Rupert Lowe, I was like, "Okay, there's something big coming up. I tried to make this petition, but now they're trying to target the lads." They refer me to Prevent for speaking to Rupert Lowe, because of my views or whatever, because apparently Rupert Lowe, a serving MP, and the Homeland Party, a registered political party, those are too extreme, according to the Ministry of Defence. Later to find out that was why that happened. And after that happened, mate, I was just like, came out of that place, came out of the airport, got picked up from somebody else because I'd had them tell my wife to just go home because I knew it would be a while. And I was just like, I cannot believe the state of the police state that this country is. All I wanted to do was save the lives of the lads that I work with, was stop a movement that was leading to the deaths of the lads. That's all I wanted to do. And they brought single... Sorry, go on, Craig.
That's a bit scary, because I did actually remember your brother explaining that part about coming home from a holiday and being arrested, but I'd forgot since. But on that, you mentioned that they arrested you under Terror Act, detained you under Terror Act laws and legislation. Did they take the phone off you?
Yeah. So they took my phone. Made me give them the code to the phone. So yeah, I was without the phone, and I said to them, I was like, so hold on, I've not committed any terrorism, right? I was pretty confident about that I'd not done that, and they were like, nope. And I was like, do you suspect me to commit any terrorism? And they were like, nope.
No.
And so I was like,
there's a similar, very current case. Quite a well-known man who holds large rallies in London, and he is due to court within the next 4 weeks with a terror crime. And it's funny because he was also detained at a point of entry. And I believe that when it's a point of entry, the terror rules become a little bit easier to imply, because obviously coming into the country. And there's a lot of similarities there. And when you're charged under a terror, I mean, I'm currently going through a criminal case just now myself, which is non-terror, thankfully. And there's some slightly different rules. And if you're not under terror suspicion, you simply don't have to give your password for your phone. But if it's under terror, then you do. There's different rules there. And you've also got different rules where I was never interviewed. In my case, I was just arrested and charged immediately. So I didn't have the opportunity to give a no-comment interview. But when it's terror, you lose that right as well. And that's peculiar that that's two people now that I know who are, in terms of the establishment, could be termed as outspoken, and both arrested when they come back from holiday. And I'm going on holiday soon. So I'm getting a bit
nervous. It's horrible, isn't it? It's a horrible feeling. You go on holiday and you're just thinking, like, because I went away recently. I mean, I had to cancel my honeymoon because of all of this, man. And so we went for a little break, and I was just coming back. I was like, this is just a horrible feeling, because I know when I get back into this country, there's at least a 50% chance that they're just going to pull me at the border and try and mess with me, scare my family, scare my friends. And Craig, like, you've got me and you, or you and I, as you might say, in this interview here, and all the people you know, and all of these people that you hear all these stories, all these people. It's thousands of people, 12,000 people a year that are arrested under these circumstances for just telling the truth. And then you've got Keir Starmer going about saying, oh, we've got freedom of speech. We've got a proud history of freedom of speech, lying directly to our faces and lying to the international community, pretending that we have freedom of speech while arresting serving armed forces personnel for speaking, while arresting people like yourself, while arresting, are you on about Tommy that you're, is it? Okay, right. So while arresting Tommy...
Yeah, he's due to court within the next 4 weeks. He was arrested under Terror Act legislation.
For speaking. And the broader implications of this is, like, there's so much that's going on, so many terrible things that are causing alarm and distress to our people in this nation, but they won't arrest any of those people causing the alarm and distress. They'll just arrest the people that are calling it out. And that's the upside down two-tier system that we have now. So after that transpired, mate, I just sat on it for a while, and I was like, right, I'm pretty sure I can see the writing on the wall here. I'm pretty sure these people are building a case, they're building a story, and they're going to try and ruin my life because of this. Because I'm in the military, I don't have the right to speak out. So they're just going to come out with a bunch of stories. I could see them developing the narrative through going to the police, telling them I was an extremist, not actually having any evidence for that. And the conclusion, by the way, of that was they gave me my phone back and stuff, because as much as they'd like to dig, as I said, all I really have done and was planning on doing was litter picks and tree planting and things like that. You know what I mean? You want to call me a political extremist? If planting trees is political extremist, then so be it. But they came after me, Craig, and I just thought, I'm not going to let them do this. I'm not going to let them use my position against me and just suddenly come out with a bunch of smear articles and ruin my life. So, went to my brother, and I was just like, he's a YouTuber. He's got hundreds of thousands of subscribers. I was like, and he was like, do you want help, basically? And I was like, I think that that I need to tell this story. So told the story. And, one of the parts of the story that doesn't get spoken about is that Matthew was in the reserves as well. So he was putting his career on the line too. And yeah, go and tell the story and get ahead of the story. And it showed to be so important to do that, because I go and tell this story, and immediately they're running with all this like far right neo-Nazi narrative, like they'd already had it cooked and prepared and ready to serve, which they had. And they were going to different media outlets saying that I was an extremist. And they weren't basing that off reality. They were just trying to sully my name with slanderous filth, because apparently I know somebody that knows somebody who knows somebody that 10 years ago did a Nazi salute, and that's how they pull you up in these sorts of things. Like they didn't show any of the pictures of me picking up litter. They didn't show, and this is one of the points I want to get to as well. Like they tried everything in their power to destroy my character based off of nothing, even though, I've done care jobs for the elderly. My family's given hundreds of thousands of pounds to Africa. We moved to Africa to build an orphanage. I'm a churchgoer. I was serving in the armed forces, but they tried everything in their power to destroy my character. And on the flip side of that, you've got the Southport killer, Axel Rudakabana, goes and murders 3 children. He was referred to Prevent 3 times, and they never pulled him up. But they pull me up on the first occasion and try and ruin my life. But this actual mass murderer who stabbed children hundreds of times, and this is one of the emotional components as well, is Axel Rudakabana. They didn't approach him, and they didn't approach him because he was black, basically. But they do come after me because I'm white, because I'm standing up against this progressive nonsense. And it's so upsetting to live in a country where I get referred to Prevent and get taken down immediately. Mass murderer gets referred to Prevent, ignored. Mass murderer goes and kills a bunch of children, and the media back him and start talking about, oh, he's a nice choir boy. I don't know if you remember all that stuff, Craig. He's a lovely choir boy, and his family go to church and stuff like that. Yeah. And on the other side, I have, Burundi, the kid his family's from Rwanda. I've been to Rwanda, and I've been to the schools in Rwanda where children were massacred, and I've seen that. I saw that when I was 9, and this Axel Rudakabana saw that, right? And he thought that was brilliant. He was reveling in all that stuff, and I saw that. I was horrified. But the 2-tier system is you can literally be a murderer and a mass murderer and a killer, and they'll back you as long as you're not, one of our people. And it's a horrible situation. And so the moral of the story, not the moral of the story, but the next step in the story is I put that out, and they just come after me, man, try and ruin my life. They put me in papers and stuff like that. But I think they kind of made a big mistake, because I don't bow down to threats. I don't bow down to any of that sort of thing. And in that sort of situation, you come after me, I'm doubling down. You know what I mean?
Mm. So to get back to the sort of chronological order of the story, so we're at the point you've been arrested. Well, you've been detained, and you were taken down to the MOD for a bit of interrogation, right? So when do we get to the bit where we're deciding about your future, and what did that look like?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I go public with this video on my brother's channel, and obviously that blows up. And we wanted it to blow up for obvious reasons, because the only thing in my favor was my ability to defend myself publicly and the court of public opinion, because I knew they were going to try and come after me. So they did come after me in the media. They come after me with all these stories and things based on nothing but just blatant slander. And in terms of work, I'm just told immediately, okay, we've seen this video you've put out. You need to just stay at home for now, and we'll deal with this. And so, sort of trying to think how that transpired. Really, is like just talk to the chain of command, and just to be honest, like the Marines, Craig, like the Royal Marines, couldn't have been prouder, more supportive of the. I couldn't be prouder of them because they were just supportive of me. And the lads were supportive of me, and everyone was getting in touch with me, just saying like, okay, we got your back on this. Like, let me know if you need help. Let me know this and that. And I probably haven't thanked enough people, like even yourself, probably haven't thanked enough people for, backing me and covering that story. And so everything's bureaucratic in the military. And obviously, I think, to be honest, they just recognized they massively messed up. They wanted to try and have this order of things. They interrogate me, they refer me to prevent, and then they'll try and find something on my phone that's incriminating, and then they'll release that to the public, and and then they'll use that to destroy my name. But little did they know that there's nothing on my phone to incriminate me with. Little did they know that I'm not everything that they're trying to make me. So that happens. I think they just, to be honest, mate, I think they realized they messed up massively. I think what they did and how they came after me wasn't even remotely legal. And it got to the point where it's like, okay, we could try and continue coming after this lad, or we could just cut ties, try and keep it quiet, because we've obviously lost the ideological battle here. And if we come after this lad even more, it's just going to make us look like a bunch of absolute tyrants, which they at least have to be seen not to be. Do you know what I mean? And so eventually it transpires. I go down for another interview. This one was more just like, it was with the military police. It was, and this is something I've not really said publicly, but it was with military police, and it was just to get over my side of the story, because they were saying, okay, you've done this infringement, you've done that infringement, and the infringements were like speaking to the media, diverting the chain of command, etc. I just went down there and was like, listen, I would have never done any of this if the MOD didn't come after me and try and ruin my life and slander my name, and I have a right to defend myself. Because what they're trying to do is actually dangerous. We saw it with like the Charlie Kirk thing. Like these words that they're trying to paint me with, they're trying to build a picture. Far right extremists, and it's like, and that builds a picture in some like whether it's scared people's minds, whether it's unwell people's minds, that builds a proper picture that those people will potentially act on and try and target me. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
So that comes about, and it just goes on for a while. It just turns out it's like, okay, we're not going to charge you with anything. To be honest, I don't think they could have charged me with anything, because every single step, every single reaction that I had was rational, and backed up even by the lads, but just backed up by reasonable reactions to the way that they were coming after me. I don't think they could have come after me because the way they came after me was, I think, illegal. So it just gets to the point where it's like, okay, we're going to allow you to, we're going to allow you to leave, but like basically you're going to get a discharge. And they're not calling it like a dishonorable discharge. It's not an honorable discharge. And this is the sort of middle. These people work in these gray areas where, oh, you're not being arrested, you're not being discharged, but I was arrested and I was basically being fired. Excuse me. So I go down to camp, and I have to be escorted around camp by one of my mates, and it was just, to be honest, like that was a really great experience for me because I hadn't seen any of the lads up until that point. And that's one of the biggest reasons that I joined in the first place, is just to be with the lads, be a part of a brotherhood. So I go down there, and I'm not going to say it was like the hero's welcome, but because I wouldn't refer to myself as a hero, certainly. But the lads, it was just great to see everyone, and it was all smiles and handshakes and good on you, mate, and we've got your back, and even up and down, like there's how the government would like to think that we are compliant, compliant, and then there's the reality of how the lads actually are. And it was great. Like, it was great to go back down there, but gave in my kit, and they released me, and I'm now at a point where we're talking about, where I'm up to now, I suppose, where I've had my job taken from me, but it's not just a job. It's like, it becomes an all-encompassing identity. And I hate to think I was only in for a couple of years, right? I hate to think how that would feel, and how it does feel for all the veterans that have been in for 30 years, that have known nothing but the Corps. And that's why people are so afraid to speak about this, because it means so much to these people to be a part of the Corps. And it means so much to me to be a part of the Corps. And to be honest, Craig, it sucks to not be a part of the Corps. It sucks to not be with the lads. And it's a miserable situation that I find myself in now. But at the same time, if I had to do it 100 times again, I would do it, because it's not about me. And if my actions have down the line saved just one person from being killed because of this sort of thing, then I'm content with that.
Yeah, I think as an outsider looking in, it's actually quite worrying how we've dealt with someone who's obviously quite emotionally attached to protecting our country as a Marine. And you're no longer a Marine. And in simple terms, well, there's a few left and right turns in the journey, you became an ex-Marine simply because you felt it was dangerous having DI selection process, that you would potentially be unfair because you've seen things that suggest some people are put through certain parts of the training which they shouldn't be able to be put through. And your big concern was, we go to war tomorrow, and some of your colleagues or yourself could be killed by allowing people in passing physical tests, who didn't actually achieve the standards on those physical tests. So it's quite a worry that, and you're one of, I think, the only whistleblower I can think of that's came from within inside the armed forces and spoke about it. And the result is you're now ex-armed forces. So that, I mean, in any other walk of life, you have protection for whistleblowers. I take it there is none for the armed forces, because your testimony, the proof is you, and you're no longer the armed forces. So it kind of worries me that, and it'll be each of the different services within the armed forces, I would imagine, would have a similar outcome. But the guys at the cold case, as it were, catching the bullets, are saying, look, this isn't right. One last question. Well, two last questions, actually. The first one, do you think what's happened to you will make it more likely or less likely anybody voicing similar concerns through any other services?
Yeah, I think it will make it, because I've heard from people that basically they're putting out these questionnaires basically to try and see how much what the lads think, and apparently they're just getting absolutely roasted by the lads because of my situation, because of the situation as a whole, and because everyone's living in fear of this, and they shouldn't have to. So do I think it's made it? I think they now know that they can't just push the Marines, they can't just push the Paras, they can't just push SF lads even. They can't just push them and push them and push them and expect no return. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's called RTR, right? Return fire, take cover, and then return accurate fire. And that's what you do when you take fire from the enemy. That's what we're trained to do. And that, I suppose, is the situation as a whole. It's like, our enemy are usually in foreign uniforms in foreign countries. But we're now getting to a point where, whether you want to call them an enemy or not, but the effects that our own government, the people in the corporations that are pushing these narratives, the effects that they're having on the people of this nation are the same as what our enemies would used to have. Our people live in fear. The people in our military live in fear. The people of this nation live in fear of, for instance, the police and the government. And the way they're acting towards us is as though we are enemies of the state. And so when somebody comes after you like that, when the state is coming after you, your reaction should be not the same, but it should be one of, hold on, we're not bowing down to this like the police bowing down to this. Do you know what I mean? And that, I think, is the broader picture here, is that their plan, and this is why it was so important to get rid of me, their plan is to do to the armed forces what they've done to the police. And what they've done to the police is turn the police into a compliant organization that will do the bidding of the government, no questions asked. And they want to use the military on the population of this nation when we step out of line. That's what they're trying to do by getting these. Putting women in is never about putting women in. It's about putting loyalists in positions of power. If you've got your job because of the Labour government, or you've got your job because of DEI, and then it gets to a point where, okay, the government and people that are in charge and of pushing DEI come towards you and say, okay, we need you to clamp down on these protests. That's what they're trying to get women in for. And do I think that people will be more likely to voice their concerns in the future because of what I've done? I think yes, because they can see now. Yes, they can see that the Ministry of Defence will come after you. Yes, they can see that the media will come after you. But the lads are creative, and they'll find ways of getting their message across. And I know that they will, and I know that they are getting their message across.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here's hoping. And the final question: what's next for John Carr?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'm trying to. These people that have come after me, they've come after the lads, they've made an enemy of me. And I never really wanted to be in this situation, but now I'm coming after these people full force. I'm on Twitter, @_John_Carr. I'm on YouTube. And to be honest, I'm just coming after the government in the way that these people need to be held to account, because what they're doing to our people, what's happening to the people of this nation is disgusting. And we're so used to, and this is what I would say to any of the lads, like, we're used to the enemy being outside. We're used to the enemy being outside our borders. But as I've been saying, like, the enemy actually, the people that are causing the most harm to our people right now, they live in number 10, or they live in Rothschild mansions and stuff. And I know you've guys been talking about, potentially, I don't know much about the Fabians, but you've been talking about that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So these people that are pulling the strings, those are our enemies right now. They're having massively horrendous effects on our society. So I'm coming after them. That's my plan. So if anybody's on board with that mission, if anybody's on board with protecting our people against these people, then that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to try and make that profitable as well. We'll see how that goes out. Good for you.
Well, look, thanks very much for your time, John. I've been following your story since your brother first went put it in the public domain. I'm glad that we eventually got to sit down and chat about it and put the story onto my platform. I think a lot of people will know about the story, but there may be some in my audience who are not aware of it, and I think it's good that they get the chance to hear your story. So thanks very much for coming on. Do you have any last comments before we wrap up?
I don't think so. No, I really appreciate, aside from the fact, I just really appreciate you having me on. And to be honest, Craig, this is the first time I've told this story publicly since I've left, because I've been so wrapped up in all the things that I've been doing. Aberdeen Council is acting like an actual third world tyrant right now. So I've been wrapped up in trying to battle with them. But I just really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to tell this story. And I think the lads will appreciate you giving me the opportunity to tell me this story, to tell you this story and to tell everyone this story. I really appreciate it. And I hope to speak to you sometime soon about any of the other million other things that are happening to this nation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no problem. Look, thanks. And as I say, I'm a great admirer of anybody that signed up to put their life in the line for any of our armed services. I know a few ex-Marines. I was with one as recently as Saturday. And if any of the current guys think I've done a good job by putting this out, I'll be humbled and embarrassed about that, because these guys are far more into the world than me. So I'll just wrap up now, John, but thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
So guys, there we go. If this story is something you want others to see, do 3 things. Hit the like button, put your comments in below, and hit the share button, send it to your friends, colleagues and family, and let them hear John's story. If you've not already done so, please subscribe to the channel, and if you want YouTube to tell you when my videos come out, hit the notification bell. But the most important, and more important than all of that, unless you're the type of person that thinks it's clever or there's any value in putting potentially people in jobs within our military that could cost anybody else their life, then know you. But everyone else, have a great day. Cheery bye now.